All right. Welcome back, listener, to the Forest Brothers podcast. It's your boy, Mr. Chris Down, back in the cut, joined by my two brothers, Nkosi Sampson, as well as our special guest, Mr. Sir Kumbi, our honorable Liverpool fan. He's going to enjoy this episode really much, very, very much, because today we are talking about Manchester City's discombobulation or their destruction by Tottenham Hotspur. And listener, by now you know that I'm a Spurs supporter. By now, I even got bored watching them score today. I was like, another one? Really? Okay. Another one? Really? Okay. Johnson came on in the 70th minute. He scored a goal too. Werner assisted him. There's no bigger embarrassment in world football today than Werner on the pitch, running faster than Walker and assisting a goal. I saw Walker look at Werner, and I could see him calculating in his head, can I catch this guy? And he said no. And then Werner just went past him. And then he crossed the ball right in front of the goal. Johnson tapped it in. Man, oh man, oh man. Man, oh man. Today's been an amazing day. Bittersweet, because at the end of the day, as we said in the previous episode, Man City are the contender for the title. Like, if anyone's going to compete with Liverpool, it's going to be Man City. And this just came at a bad time. I feel like we should have played City like later on, like when Man City is like gained some points. But the fact that now it's an 8-point difference, we gave them the title last year. We've taken it away from them this year. So, I guess Spurs really are the kingmakers. I guess that's our title. I guess we give and we take. We give and we take. That's what Spurs does. And beautiful game. Anyway, I also just wanted to let me actually throw it to Gumbi, because Gumbi, I know you hate Manchester City with a passion. I know you were a Spurs fan with me today when we absolutely. Oh, that was actually yesterday when we absolutely wrecked them. So, what are your opinions on that Spurs Man City game?
Well, first of all, welcome listeners, and I just want to say congratulations to you and your Spurs team for not spurring and throwing the game away and bottle jobbing. So that was nice. I think that this was probably the best football I've seen Spurs play in a very long time. And not just because of the score, but I felt like Spurs is one of the few teams for the past 4 years that has always given Manchester City trouble, because a lot of teams respect Manchester City too much. I say that because when you look at the games, everyone always kind of like lets them have 80%, 90% ball, and then they want to defend. Whereas like Spurs actually brought the game to them. Um, I like the combination of is it Kulusevski, or I always mispronounce his name.
Kulusevski. Our boy
Kulusevski.
Dejan.
He, when it comes to Manchester City, is plays like he needs a Ballon d'Or, like every single time. I've noticed that, and I just want to give him his credit. Shout out to Maddison for getting out of his slump, because he had been terrible the past couple of games and then finally got it right. And, this also benefits Liverpool. So inherently, like, I'm celebrating the win. But I do think Ange is a good coach, a bit stuck in his ways in the sense that, like, you can't play like this for a whole season. I just don't think it's feasible. But when it works, it really works. And yesterday was just one of those days where you got to tip your hat and just say, Spurs, congratulations, you played well and you did your thing. And I also want to give a special shout out to your midfield, because I didn't see Bernardo Silva. I didn't see the youngster Rico. I think it's Rico, Rico Lewis. And it was just, this is a different side of City. Like, usually, even when City lose, they dominate the game, but I never felt that. And Haaland did miss a lot of good chances, but I didn't feel like Man City dominated the game like they typically do. So props to you guys, and like a fully deserved win. And Long may it continue against Manchester City.
You know, a few weeks ago when we were having our Man City clinic and I was talking about the upcoming games, I did anticipate Spurs being a difficult one for them because we spoke about the physicality of the team, how injured and battered they are. And, I remember speaking about the Brighton game, in the last 15 minutes, they just lacked energy because they weren't just losing; they were being outplayed. Brighton players were passing it around them. Even the last goal, it was just a tiki taka play into the box and a goal. Like that doesn't usually happen to Man City, and it looks like those issues have carried on. And we saw, I think, Man City for the first 20 minutes looked like they were going to score five. I thought, wow, like Haaland. I'm so sad I didn't captain him today. I sold him in my FPL. I'm thinking, oh, he's gonna break the record for number of points. Foden's going to have a hat trick. It's just going to be incredible. I think going to score seven because that's what it looked like. Like Vardio was making these overlapping runs on the left hand side. So much space. Him and Walker, just so much space, can do whatever they want. And I think after Maddison scored and Spurs were able to like maintain possession for a little bit, there was no press for Man City. They were trying. It's not like they weren't trying. They were trying, but they couldn't do it. They couldn't get the ball back. Their attacks just lacked something. Like it always felt like Haaland was stretching a little too much, or he just didn't have enough time to shoot. All the midfielders, like they didn't have the control they usually do. And I think this is a huge concern for Man City moving forward because you play Liverpool next week. Like, like this is such a horrible run of fixtures if you're them because like it's not gonna get easier. Like it's gonna be hard games where you're gonna have to lose control. And we asked this like, is Pep gonna change? Him and Ange are very similar in the sense that they want to play high pressing football, control possession, control games. I don't know, Pep. Like you might have to become a long ball merchant like the next few games because I don't think Man City players have it in them to actually play high pressing football at this stage because over 90 minutes they just couldn't cope with Spurs. And it's not like, and Kumbi, you said Spurs were playing well. Like I think I've seen Spurs play better. I think I've seen Spurs create more opportunities and be better on the ball. But I don't think they had to do all that because even if you look at the two Maddison goals, it was a simple, not simple. I mean, I'm downplaying a little bit, but like the winger was beating his man and getting across it. That's if you break it down, that's all that was happening. It wasn't like there was like 3, 4 players in the midfield combining. It was just one-on-one play on the wings, beat your man, get across it, and no one could track runners. People just they couldn't hang with Spurs, and I'm like, this is concerning. If you can't hang in a game like that against the team, which by the way started the day off in the bottom half of the table, I have to mention this. Man City were playing a bottom half team when they stepped onto the pitch. That's what it was. You get rocked 4-0 at your stadium by a bottom half side who are missing big players, by the way. Yes, you're missing Rodri. They're missing Bentancur, who's started damn near every game he's been available for. They're missing their 2 starting centre backs. Haaland could not get it done against 2 centre backs who should probably be playing in the championship. Like, this is rock bottom, man. This is really rock bottom. Like, in my opinion, this is worse than the Bournemouth loss. It's worse than the Brighton. Like, this is their worst loss yet because it looked like there's nothing they could do about it. They were getting beaten, and as hard as they tried, and they really tried, man. Like, I want to emphasize that. Man City tried their hardest to score a goal, and they could not do it. And that is probably the most concerning thing about this. And I thought the Liverpool game might be tough. It still might be because there's a lot of emotion associated with that game. But let Liverpool score the first goal, man. Let them score one goal early in the first 10, 20 minutes, it's going to be a bloodbath. I swear. It's going to be horrible. But yeah, what were your thoughts, Mangoro?
Wait, before we jump to Mangora, I just want to say, first of all, I vehemently disagree. We're not a bottom tier. Fuck you, Samson. We're not. We are not that. We are not that. All right. We're 3 points away from top four last week. So don't listen to this man chat or listener or whatever. Don't listen to that brother, man. He's just a hater. He's a hater. We're sixth now. Also, I just wanted to say this is Man City's first loss at home in 2 years. They usually win at home. And we went there and we destroyed them 4-0. I just have to say that. And lastly, I just have to say, Savinho, oh my God. Worst signing this season. Has to be. Has to be. That brother's terrible. Disgusting. Like, I was watching that game today, and Savinho is literally the worst thing that has happened to Man City. The worst. The worst. Absolute worst. He's garbage.
I would argue it's Mateus Nunes.
Maybe, but I mean, Savinho, man, I don't know. I feel like I'd rather have Mateus than Savinho. I can't. I'm sorry. I have to say, Savinho is just like, you can tell he's never gonna pass the ball. You can just tell. You can tell he wants it in his feet. He's gonna try what he does, and that's that. He is literally Manchester United's Anthony. That's Savinho. That's what he is. He's that bad. Anyway, that's just me. I'll have another team on Goro.
Man, when I saw them fielding Gundogan at CDM, I thought of the 2021 Champions League final, and I was like, Spurs are about to have their way here, because honestly, that was the worst city I've ever seen. Like, in all honesty, like, I thought it was gonna get better. It's just getting worse by week at this point, and I've been mentioning this about quite a number of weeks, and you guys thought I was playing. This old age home is not the one, like, in all honesty, because a stat came out that City actually, when you look at the average age of their squad, at a huge chunk, I think of over between 10 and 15, are 29 plus within that squad. And we can clearly see now what's going on there at Manchester City. Like, and I think it's safe to say I thought I had faith. I will be honest, listener. When I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Yeah, I was wrong that they're gonna come back. This is the end of the road for City. This is the end of the road. It's done. They're not coming back from this. It's the end. Like, they're giving Liverpool the title at this point. It's the end of the road, in all honesty, because like, and there were two distinctive goals where I could tell that there's no recovery from this. I think it was the one where Gundogan was on his knees when Cavadio passed it to him and they scored. That's when I was like, okay, this is not good. This is like damning. Like, it was not good. And then, as Muta mentioned, the Kyle Walker versus Timo Werner one, I was like, something is happening here. And they're in crisis. Like, in all honesty, Manchester City are in crisis. Like, I look at the team and I look at the players. I think Cole Palmer saved himself by leaving the club, because now, like, Holland was intent on not scoring. Like, he was just trying to prove to the world that he can't score today. Like, that's how terrible he was. But in all honesty, like, Manchester City, like, they need at least four players. Like, this, not next summer, this January. It's a crisis, honestly. Like, they need a new CDM. They need probably like a few mids. I think Matthias Nunes was up there as one of the worst, but like, I do agree with that. Like, he's not it. I don't know, Pep. Ever since like his recruitment has gone out the window, like, some of the players he signed, he doesn't trust them anymore. Like, they're just not good. Like, as you mentioned, Savinho, like, it's just not it. Doku is in and out of games. Is so inconsistent. Like, there's just a lot. Like, and the players that I think someone mentioned this the other day, I think recently, that the players that are supposed to be coming to the forefront now for City, they sold them. You look at Palmer, you look at Alvarez. Those players could be helping Man City now, but honestly, like, if Pep continues to field these old age home players, like, it's just not going to work, because like, you look at the squad, like, they're tired, they're old. It's not looking great, and for us Chelsea fans, like, it hurts us because they beat us at the beginning of the season, and now when I look back, I'm like, why aren't you playing them now, like, when they're in this state? So come on, man. Like Man City, in all honesty, in my opinion, Man City are in trouble. Like they need to act. Yeah, ASAP, ASAP, act. Or else the people will be having their way. Liverpool next week might score so many goals, and you might come here. It might be 7, who knows? But we'll see. In my opinion, like it's the end of the road for City, and they're not winning this title. They've given it to Liverpool. Maybe Maresca will do something, but we're not talking about those things. We stay humble and I do want to speak about this thing of stay humble, and I mentioned it in the previous episode where I said ever since Haaland said that stay humble thing, it's gone it's gone array for Liverpool for City. You see these comments thing, I'm gonna mention it again. These players need to stop with these funny statements and comments because these are the results. Salah said something, it hasn't shown up yet, it will show up in due time. Now Haaland stay humble. Now he's not humble. These things are happening. So that's just my take. I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Muta or Mr. Kumbi.
Thanks. Yeah, so two questions for you, Kumbi. First question is, if Man City do somehow figure things out within the next week and beat you guys in the next game, does that make you a little more shaky in the sense of like the title race? Does that make you feel like, okay, this is still tight? Because I know in the previous episode you said if you guys beat City and extend it by another 3 points, it's over. It's a wrap. It's done. There's no way they can make it. But what if they actually do win against you guys? Does that make you reconsider things? That's the first question. Second question, January window. Who do Man City need to buy, in your opinion? Like, who do you think can actually make their squad better? Like, is there any player out there that you're like, you know what? They should get that guy because that's someone who can probably help their season out.
If they beat us, I think it opens up the title race, right? So it's one of those like pendulum swings. If you win, if we win, it's done because like 11 points, there's no coming back. If you lose, the title race for me is now open. We still have the better chance because we're at 5 points, but for me, it's open for everyone because like that's just 2 games that you can lose, which can happen. But like for me, 11 points means you have to lose 4 games, and I don't see Liverpool losing 4 games for the rest of the season. Like I could see draws happening, but not 4 games. So to answer your question, there you go. If Liverpool wins, it's over. If Manchester City wins, the title race is open. And yeah, the only thing to your second question was about who Manchester City need. To a certain extent, Pep is a hard-headed person. So he will not admit Jack Grealish was a terrible signing. He's never worked. Yes, they've won titles, but they've won titles despite having Jack Grealish, right? The same applies for Matheus Nunes. The same applies for Jeremy Doku. Uh, Vardiol is being played in the wrong position. He is not a left back. He's a centre back. He has played left back when it comes to covering, but if he's your starting left back, you're exposed. And I don't think that. So Manchester City, if they're to compete, needs a left back, and they need someone to do some of the work that Rodri was doing, because that's another key position where. But the problem is you can't get the best because they'll be like, well, Rodri's coming back. I don't want to be on the bench. So they're kind of in a tough position. But if they do somehow throw the bag at someone, I'd probably say they should probably compete with us and Arsenal for Zubamendi because Zubamendi is someone who can bring that defensive aspect that they're missing. You can't have Rico Lewis, Ilkay Gundogan, and whoever Mateus Nunes as your midfielder. It's just not. It's a terrible midfield, right? Like, and it just doesn't work. And I will say this: as much as Haaland scores, he doesn't do other things in the game that other strikers do. Because in this era of football, you kind of need a striker that plays total football. So hold up play, defending, all of those other things, the intangibles that Haaland has no care for, right? So if Haaland is not firing, you need someone like Julian Alvarez, who you let go, which made absolutely no sense, right? Because right now they could use Julian Alvarez. Who do they go for? I think you compete with Manchester United for the boy at Sporting Lisbon, Victor Gyökeres. That's who you go for. So I would say Manchester City needs a left back, a defensive midfield, and a striker. They have the bag to do it. The question is, will they pull the trigger? But if they do, yeah, it's going to be a very competitive. If they do make those transfers, and if they beat Liverpool, this title race is far from over. But even if we beat them next week and they go shopping, it won't matter because the gap is just too big. Yeah, that's my opinion on it.
I do agree with everything you just said there in terms of left back, center mid, up front. Like, they do need to strengthen those areas. I'd even argue center back because Stones and Akanji are not getting any younger. Akele signed him, I think it was like, what, 28, 29? That made no sense. But in all honesty, like, I do agree with that. But I do have like an open question that the listeners can answer in the comments, or y'all can add to, y'all can chime in here. I still wonder, what exactly does Bernardo Silva do? He's not a defensive midfielder. He's not an attacking midfielder. He's not a number 8. He's not a winger. What is he? Like, I'm still waiting. Someone should tell me what Bernardo Silva is. I don't know what that guy is, but he plays week in and week out. Week in and week out he's playing, but he's giving you nothing. What is he exactly? Like, is he a professional football player, or is he just there to hang out and wear number 20? So yeah, y'all can answer that question for me because I've been saying this. I still don't know what he does.
You know,
I think he's a wild card. But yeah, Samson, go ahead.
before I answer, I was just gonna say, like, and it kind of ties into what you're saying, asking about Bernardo Silva. Like, Kumbi spoke about how hard-headed Pep is, and the players he's fielding. Like, number one, the tactics he's trying to play. Without Rodri, who's his key to implementing his high pressing style because he stops counterattacks. If you don't change it up, if you are missing your most important player, you'd imagine that you'd change things up in some way. Like, I was actually pretty shocked when Gvardiol was playing basically left wing the whole of the first half. I thought it would be like 3 center backs, and the left wing would be basically an auxiliary wing back. That made sense to me just because you have more control like that, in build up and counterattacks. Now, if you have players like, because I think he started the game with Bernardo Silva, Foden, and Haaland, with a Gundogan and Rico Lewis pivot. When you play players like that, who's working? Like, who is tracking anyone? Like, and what those players were very good at, and again, I don't think this is their forte, but what they were sort of good at was pressing from the front. Like, they would, run and close people down. But Haaland and Foden are very guilty of this. As soon as the press beats them, they're not running back. They're watching. They're standing at the halfway line and they're like, hey, you guys take care of it. I'm going to be right here. And it's the sort of thing where you can do that if you're a certain kind of player. In my years of watching football, there's a handful of players that I've watched do it and I've just accepted because I know how good they are. And I'll list them, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, Eden Hazard, Mesut Ozil, and Neymar. If your name is not any of those guys, you should not be doing that. You should be working. And Foden is not Ozil. He does not pass, okay? I think he has the vision. Actually, I don't think he has Ozil's vision. He has some vision. He could pass. He could create opportunities. He just doesn't do it because he'd rather shoot. He'd rather just like hit a worldie every now and then and think he's top, he's world class. Haaland, he used to do all the stuff we're talking about when he was at Dortmund. Hold up play, link up play. I don't know what got into him at City. I think it's the records. Now he thinks he's Cristiano, like because he plays like Cristiano in his last days at Real Madrid and Juventus. That's exactly how he plays. If he's not getting the ball in the box or getting the ball in a position where he can shoot, he doesn't care. He's almost looking at you like, why are you passing me the ball? Which is insane to me because like your team is struggling, you know, you guys are in the pits. This is the worst form you've been in the whole time you've been here. You would think that, the guy would try a bit harder to help the team, to at least care about winning instead of his own stats. And then you have Bernardo Silva. I cannot tell you what Bernardo Silva does because to me, I call him the rich man's Joao Felix. And Mongoro, you'll remember this conversation we had. I told you Joao Felix was burdened with talent. He is a guy who literally, when we first saw him, people were like, that's Messi. That's going to be the next Messi right there. Portugal in great hands. But he doesn't know what to do with all his skills. And Bernardo Silva is kind of the same. He will get into like the perfect positions to cross, to pass, to shoot, and then he'll like not do any of those things. He'll dribble a little bit and pass it back. And you're like, why? You earn over 200K a week. You're one of the most respected, high profile players in the world. Why can't you do something that like helps us? Like, why can't you take responsibility in a huge moment? Like, what's stopping you? Like, burdened with talent. There's no other way I can explain it because he has, like, I look at him and I look at Bruno Fernandes and I'm like, there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to do the things Bruno Fernandes does. Because Bruno Fernandes, we shit talk him all the time. He creates opportunities. He scores goals. And I look at Bernardo Silva and I'm like, what's stopping you from even producing half of that? Because if you look at Bernardo Silva's number, he does not have half of what Bruno Fernandes has. He does not have it. He's not even close to matching what that brother has. But he's just as talented or even more talented. So I don't know. To answer your question, I have no idea what that brother does on the pitch. I think he's just there for vibes. Or he's just one of those guys who he joined a team that was really winning, really good. He settled into a role and he just got comfortable. He never grew. He never expanded. He just like, I can pass the ball back and run a little forward and I'm going to get a trophy at the end of the season. He doesn't take responsibility, and that's just a shame, really.
Yeah, no, 100%. Definitely, yeah. And so lastly on like this last part of this Man City segment. So Pep actually did throw on De Bruyne in the last like 15-ish minutes, and honestly, they were basically playing with 10 men. I don't know if I saw De Bruyne make a pass. I don't think I saw him get the ball and do anything, make a cross, nothing. I don't think I saw De Bruyne actually like influence the game besides running around with his bob, weaving around, his fake Jack Grealish hairstyle. Anyway, I'm just saying De Bruyne, I didn't see him today. So I would actually ask Kumbi this, as kind of the last, is this the end of the brother Kevin? Because, in past seasons, Pep could actually count on De Bruyne to win games when they're difficult. He can actually count on because De Bruyne, like, I remember that season when Liverpool almost had it, and De Bruyne was like, not on my watch. And for 10 games straight, that brother was on some God level type shit. Like, he was on some, I will do whatever it takes to make sure we win this thing. Do you think that De Bruyne is still alive? Or is this kind of, it's over with. It's done.
It's funny that you brought that up because I was actually, like, this whole time we were talking, I'm like thinking, don't forget to talk about De Bruyne, right? So I have a love-hate relationship with Kevin De Bruyne. Um, he is a huge Michael Owen fan, and he was a Liverpool fan. I don't know if you guys know that Kevin De Bruyne is actually a Liverpool fan because of Michael Owen, who I do not like because of the way he left us for Real Madrid. But that's a fun fact. But it's over for the Kevin De Bruyne show. He is arguably Manchester City's best ever player. Him and Kun Aguero and Yaya Toure. Those are for me. Um, Vincent Company also is in that ballpark, but I would say just skill wise, I would say KDB, Yaya Toure, and Kun Aguero are arguably Manchester City's best ever players. So I say this with a lot of reverence for Kevin De Bruyne. He is a shell of himself, and you can see why he wanted to leave for the Saudi money because his body is just failing him. He is not the same person that he was. That match, that 10 game streak, also culminated in us losing because he single handedly on the last day beat Aston Villa by himself when they were down 2-0. So I know what peak Kevin De Bruyne is, and it hurts because like he's done us so much damage, right? And just not just us, but all teams in the Prem. So it's actually kind of sad to see him like his downgrade has not even been a slow grind. It's just he felt like off the planet. It's so bad now, and I think he just needs to move to either the US or to the Saudi league because he's finished. Um, but he's still one of the greats. But like, yeah, there's no debate about it. Like, he's just not. He's a shell of himself. And I know you guys were going off on Bernardo Silva on what he is, but um, I have to mention that he is a pivotal part of why Manchester City was Manchester City. He himself is also going through a rough patch. Um, but his game has never been predicated on speed, or he's always just been a smart player who can kind of play everywhere, which is why it's always difficult to kind of say, like, is he a midfielder? Is he a winger? Is he a false nine? Because he's played false nine before too. I don't know if you guys remember, like in prior seasons. So, like with Bernardo Silva, sometimes you don't see his greatness because he's just playing in so many roles. But this year, he has not been good, and he has really fallen down the pecking order. Um, so to answer your question, no debate. De Bruyne is done. Uh, Thank you for your time in the Premier League. It is Liverpool's time. Long may it continue.
You know what they say: leave the football before the football leaves you. Mongoro, go ahead.
I'm not. I don't know where you found that saying, but okay. Uh, Yeah, I do agree with that. It's the end of the road for Kevin. As a former Chelsea player, like we did let him go prematurely, and he's done well for Manchester City. So we should give him his flowers now, as he's about to head out of the Premier League. I think it's the end, but we should add some of his teammates to that list. I do believe that Kyle Walker, it's also the end of the road. I think Rico Lewis should step into that role. Now I think it's time. I could also argue that John Stones, it could be time for him to step aside as well. And then we let Simpson, not going to say his other name, step in at that point. I don't know if he's good. That's another brother. Kundowa, I don't understand bringing him back. I think he also needs to step aside. I think it's the end of the road. So, and also I think the biggest culprit that I think people don't like talking about him because of all the other things that he does. We do need to have a serious look at Edison as well between the sticks. In terms of does he still have it, or he was just fooling us all these years? Because I think those are people that we need to take a closer look at. Because as a person who knows the goalkeepers union very well, there's some things that he's been doing this season and last season that people were covering for that I'm like, okay, here now you're going to be exposed. So take a closer look at that list. Now there's something happening there. So those few players, take a closer look at them.
Now that's a very good list. That's a very good list. But yeah, I think that's I think that's a good discussion on Manchester City. I don't know if there's much more. I'm very curious, listener. Definitely, you will hear us talk about them against Liverpool next week. No, we'll be back here with the analysis. Maybe or maybe not, depending on what happens in that game. You might see Kumbia again. Who knows? You might. We
I'll be
shall see.
here. I'll be here. Win or lose or draw, I will be here to discuss that segment, and I can't wait.
I
Can't wait.
bet. Now, I mean, would love some Liverpool representation. Badly enough, I don't really know many Man City fans. You know, some of these plastic fans, they tend to melt away when things get a little rough. You know, you don't see much of them. You know, they're not really active. Even though Arsenal fans haven't won too much lately, but they stick around. They make noise. Chelsea fans, you know, they make noise. City fans, I have a City fan in my group chat, lost his head completely. He's gone. Headless horseman type shit. Like he could not handle it. He could not handle the 4-0 bashing we gave him. Anyway, listener, thank you so much for hanging out with the First Brothers podcast. We appreciate your time. Kumbi, we appreciate your time being here. We'll be with you for that Man City game. Mangoro, Amp, thank you so much. And yeah, listener, do like, comment, share, subscribe. Kumbi, you have something?
Just want to say thank you guys for inviting me on, and listener, thank you so much for taking the time out to listen to the podcast. Follow, subscribe them. Best in town. Thanks, guys. Peace. Oh, and you'll never walk alone.
He had to. He had to do it. We had to do it. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. All right, listener. And with that, we'll end it right there. And yeah, peace out, and we'll catch you on the next one.